welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone episode. This is like deja vu, isn't it, Jo Alabaster?
It is very strange.
Yes. Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, or as we like to call it, Take Two. We recorded the whole introduction, folks, and I looked at my recorder and I pressed the wrong button. This is the Skeptic Zone number 314 for the 26th of October 2014. Jo Alabaster and I are at the Festival of Mind, Body, Spirit, or as we love to call it, Jo,
Mind, Body, Wallet.
We do indeed. We're having a coffee before our big adventure wandering around the halls here. We're waiting for Eran Segev from A Grain of Salt. He's coming along. And our new friend Alethea Dean, who's very interested in all matters skeptical. But what an experience this is going to be. Jo, I understand this is your first Mind, Body, Wallet.
This is my first Mind, Body, Wallet. I'm not entirely sure what to expect, as I wasn't for the Paranormal Expo either. But I've got a feeling there might be a few things here that I actually take a bit of an issue with comparatively.
You might just do that. We're going to be on the lookout for all sorts of things, but including, or especially I should say, people making outrageous claims.
So we're looking for people claiming to be able to, say, cure cancer?
Or especially that, but all sorts of other claims. We'll see how we go. But I'm sure our listeners would also like to know what's coming up on this week's show. And on this week's show, yes, it's another report by Jo. Jo, you're going to be reporting on chemtrails.
I am indeed. We tend to treat chemtrails as a bit of a punchline to a joke sometimes, but I thought they'll worth a bit of time, so yeah, I'm looking into them this week.
We see some over Sydney from time to time. Not so many, I must admit, but when I used to live in Germany many years ago, the skies, I remember looking up and seeing the skies full of these trails, which we call condensation trails, of course, which are more popularly known, I guess, as chemtrails. So, Jo, looking forward to your report. And we have Maynard's spooky action. And once again, Maynard is reporting from a similar event to this, the Paranormal and Spiritual Expo. His last report, talking to a ghost hunter. And I have a bit of a chat to Maynard to discover why why his approach is so softly, and why he likes to chat to people, and why he doesn't confront them. And I think listeners might appreciate why he doesn't do that. And I can't think, Jo, what else could be coming up in this week's show? Use your psychic power.
I will use my psychic power. I'm centering myself right now.
The listeners are also concentrating.
I'm getting an R word, an RiAus, a week in science.
Good heavens, I don't know how you do it, Jo. You should apply for the Australian Skeptics $100,000 challenge.
I should.
A week in science from RiAus, of course. Now, what we'll do, Jo, is halfway through our meanderings with Eran and Alethea around the Mind, Body, Wallet, we'll stop and update our listeners as to what we've discovered and how we're going, and then we'll do a wrap-up at the end of the show.
This sounds fantastic.
I hope so.
I am looking forward to it.
Me too. While we finish our flat white and our latte, which are going down very well at the moment, and we wait for Eran and Alethea, we'll let our listeners enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
What we want is some more evidence, please. Here's Jo Alabaster.
Hello, this is Jo Alabaster. Chemtrail conspiracy theory. I am utterly guilty of treating chemtrails as a bit of a joke. Taking photographs of contrails and posting them with faux alarmist captions, setting up a satirical pro-chemtrail Facebook page. Many of my skeptical friends do this too. We treat chemtrails as punchlines in bad jokes and banter about conspiracy theorists and bizarre beliefs. They're up there with reptilians and the Illuminati. However, today I'm going to take a few moments to approach the subject a little more seriously. What is the conspiracy theory about? What are its ramifications? And what is the simple and evidence-based explanation for the white trails across the sky left by aircraft? Consistent with the bizarro world I'm reporting from today, last thing first, what are contrails? Contrails, a portmanteau of condensation and trail, are the white streaks left behind planes given favourable atmospheric conditions. Aircraft fuel is composed primarily of hydrocarbons. These give off carbon dioxide and water vapour as their main combustion products. When these hot exhaust gases mix with rarefied cool air, the water in the gas freezes quickly and forms microscopic ice crystals, leaving trails of white haze, similar in look and chemical composition to a cloud. Dependent on the condensation in the atmosphere, contrails may dissipate quickly or linger. The atmospheric conditions which support cirrus cloud formation and the very moist atmosphere that results can allow contrails to persist for hours. For a more in-depth explanation of contrail formation and persistence, NASA have an excellent site devoted to the topic, the Contrail Education Project, which can be found at science-edu.larc.nasa.gov/contrail-edu. Contrails have been around for as long as modern aviation has, but in the mid-1990s the chemtrail conspiracy theory began to develop and spread. The chemtrail being a portmanteau of chemical and trail, conspiracy theory takes many forms, but generally it's a belief that an authority, be it governmental, military, scientific or other, and yes, the Illuminati, Zionists, elite and reptilians all get a look in here, are using aircraft, often commercial aviation aircraft for greater concealment, sometimes military aircraft, to conduct spraying of our skies. The composition of the chemicals varies with different claims. Aluminium, barium, strontium and silver feature highly, and occasionally biological agents are said to be involved. The purpose of the spraying varies widely also. The most popular belief seems to be that it's the facilitation of a geoengineering project to alter weather, reflect the sun's rays, or combat climate change. Other theories include spraying to control the population, cause illness, control minds, vaccinate people without consent. Some claim that chemtrail spraying is a form of military weapons testing. Some chemtrail conspiracy theorists produce images of commercial passenger aircraft containing large connected barrels in place of seats as evidence that the aviation industry is involved in the spraying of chemicals, claiming that these are an aerosol dispersion system. In fact, they're full of water. They are used by airlines to simulate the weight of passengers and cargo, to test different centres of gravity while the aircraft is in flight. As with explanations of how contrails are formed, however, the explanation of the purpose of the ballast barrels are often countered with claims of cover-ups and disinformation by those invested in chemtrail conspiracy theories. This is often a trouble with conspiracy theories. Any debunking or rational explanation for phenomena is met by the true believer with distrust and often an expansion of the original theory to account for new information. It can be an interesting exercise to create a theory and then expand it to incorporate further conspiracies as information counter to the theory is encountered. In order to compile this report, I sat myself down to watch documentaries produced by chemtrail believers. Why in the world are they spraying? And what in the world are they spraying? Dear listeners, I've made it through documentaries on Deepak Chopra, I've heard the stories of 9/11 truthers, watched anti-vaccination propaganda, I've gotten through the entirety of Charlene Werner explaining the physics behind how homeopathy works. I've sung along to Mike Adams' raps about GMOs and the flu vaccination. Heck, I've watched all of Plan 9 from Outer Space and Vampiros Lesbos. I think I've got a fairly high tolerance for painful viewing. I spent yesterday walking around the Mind Body Wallet Festival. I can generally cope with wacky ideas and claims. But the chemtrail documentaries, they had me beat. I got through perhaps half an hour of gish galloping before I just couldn't take it anymore. So many claims with such flimsy evidence, where any was provided at all. Both documentaries are on YouTube, and if you can make it through even one, I salute you. One thing I'll note, a scene in one of the documentaries showed a man walking about some bushland, pointing out trees which were dead or not thriving, attributing their state to chemtrail spraying. While I'm more familiar with rural Australia than I am with the US, their evidence of chemtrails looked very much consistent to me with the effects of a country undergoing drought conditions. People interviewed on the documentary also attributed weather conditions consistent with what we've been experiencing worldwide over the past few years to chemtrail spraying, and they claimed that geoengineering was taking place in an effort from the military and government to reflect the sun's rays and reduce warming, which all makes me wonder what the documentary makers' position on anthropomorphic climate change is. So, aside from exposing your faithful reporter to some incredibly difficult viewing, what's the harm in believing in chemtrail conspiracy theories? Overall, it can seem like a bit of relatively harmless kookiness, all things considered. Anti-chemtrail activists are surprisingly active and visible, affixing corflute signs to trees and signposts across their neighbourhoods, holding protests against geoengineering and chemtrail spraying in cities across Australia, writing letters and petitioning MPs, and one anti-chemtrail activist actually made it into the South Australian Parliament. While I wholeheartedly support people becoming involved in political activism, in this case I suspect that the resources MPs and police put towards responding to the chemtrail activists could be put to some better use. The largest local chemtrail conspiracy group on Facebook, Australia and New Zealand Against Chemtrails and Geoengineering, boasts 8,027 members, which is roughly 150 more than the anti-vaccination campaigners the Australian Vaccination Skeptics network currently have. Anti-chemtrail activists are visible and spreading their message. 2 years ago, an article ran in The Australian reporting on threats made by anti-chemtrail activists to harm pilots and shoot down commercial aircraft, stating that these threats were becoming more overt, prevalent and alarming. Australian Federal Police have monitored anti-chemtrail activists planning to intercept airline pilots at Sydney Airport. Again, more police resources, while pilots in particular, and aviation companies in general, experience concern for their safety. Those are a few points demonstrating anti-chemtrail activism's effect on the general public, but what about the believers? I don't imagine that it feels wonderful to hold the belief that the government and or the aviation industry and or the Illuminati are out there, wielding power and spraying the skies and causing harm to the population. Similar to anti-vaccination conspiracy theorists who believe that the medical establishment and government, and we're talking doctors, nurses, researchers, pharmaceutical companies, MPs, public health officials, and journalists, are all out to harm them. Anti-chemtrail activists subscribe to a rather far-reaching conspiracy. The government, the military, the aviation industry, from CEOs to baggage handlers, aeronautical engineers involved in designing, assembling, maintaining and repairing aircraft, everybody employed by an airport, everybody involved in manufacturing and transporting the chemicals that they allege are being sprayed. Then perhaps emergency services workers. In case a plane went down, surely they'd need to know how to cover up evidence of chemical tanks and spraying. That's a heck of a lot of people who need to be working at keeping a substantially large secret, don't you think? Therefore, that's a heck of a lot of people who are willing to sacrifice the health of the general population in order to carry out some grand master plan. Now, this is a point that really gets me when it comes to those who subscribe to these theories. The huge number of people that they must believe are either malicious or stupid. It seems such a bleak view to hold of your fellow humans. That, and there's a general worry. Imagine watching the skies with fear, genuinely worrying for your health. People are afraid of something for which there's no credible evidence, and while this happens often, I suppose, and it's easy to get sidetracked as to who is responsible, the chemtrail conspiracy theory does cause fear. Occasionally, that fear leads people to wear masks or scarves over their faces, or spend time spraying vinegar in the air around them, which allegedly dissipates or neutralises chemtrail chemicals. Others turn to buying products specifically designed to provide protection, orgonite devices, and solutions to be ingested, homeopathic or otherwise. In extreme cases, people relocate to so-called safe zones, where aircraft are said not to be spraying. Well, while we might find the belief irrational, people do genuinely believe it nonetheless, and the concern and agitation generated by this belief is real. Finally, there's the tendency of people who believe in one conspiracy theory to be open to others, and there are others which cause more direct and measurable harm to individuals and society, such as anti-vax conspiracies. It's difficult to make decisions which will lead to positive social, health and well-being outcomes for yourself and your loved ones if you have a strong distrust in scientific consensus and all authority. And yes, I did mention social outcomes. While I do my utmost not to ridicule individuals, in fact I have some sympathy for people living with the fear of what's in our skies, I do still think that chemtrails are one of the wackier and more far-fetched conspiracy theories out there, and I can't see the satire letting up anytime soon.
On Maynard.com.au. AU.
It's Bunga Bunga with Tim Ferguson.
Myself, Maynard. Hello everybody, welcome to show 8 of Bunga Bunga. What a great show that is. I see we've got a small audience here at the Frou Frou Cafe in Glebe Point Road. Bunga Bunga show 8, we have a whole stack of stuff coming. We've got some great Bunga Bunga brown nosing coming your way. We've got Tim's historical hypothetical, this time one set in the 21st century involving the Labor Party. I know you're going to enjoy that. Of course, we are at the Frou Frou Cafe in Glebe. The waiting staff's being very nice to us, and we'll be having maybe a drop-in later from Richard Saunders of the Australian Skeptics. He was on our first show. His popularity has really gone through the floor since that, and he's hoping he can perhaps claw it back.
The great thing with Richard Saunders from the Skeptics, you don't know what to believe.
On Maynard.com.au. AU.
A highlight of the Australian Skeptics National Convention, going back as far as 1982, has been the awarding of the Bent Spoon Prize to the most preposterous piece of paranormal or pseudoscientific piffle. Past winners have included Tom Wards, the self-proclaimed psychic, Peter Brock, the racing car driver, Women's Day magazine, Steve Vizard from Tonight Live on Channel 7, the Southern Cross University journalist Mike Willesee, the so-called free energy generator from Lutech, and in more recent years Merrill Dorey from the Australian Vaccination Network and Fran Sheffield from Homeopathy Plus. Always an interesting lineup of potential Bent Spoon winners, and 2014 is no exception. Shortlisted for this year we have Elaine Hollingsworth, nominated by David Dodd, for the film One Answer for Cancer. Elaine Hollingsworth promotes attacks on medicine and a single cure for all types of cancer, and also runs the following websites, including doctorsaredangerous.com. Our next nomination is Dr. Marianne DeMacy, nominated by Ilias Milisic. I would like to nominate Dr. Marianne DeMacy for the Bent Spoon Award for the two-part series called The Heart of the Matter. She made for the ABC Catalyst program that dealt with the link between cholesterol and heart disease. To quote a Sydney Morning Herald article, the program focused heavily on the opinions of US experts, one of whom believes vaccines can cause autism, and another who promotes chiropractic for heart problems, while a number of high-profile Australian experts were not used. Our next nominee, the Institute of Public Affairs and Andrew Bolt, nominated by Tony Goodfellow. I nominate the Institute of Public Affairs and Andrew Bolt for their climate change denialism, promoting anti-intellectualism through contradicting established evidence and causing harm through stopping adaptation and mitigation efforts by their obfuscation. I also nominate them for misusing the word skeptic. Next on the list we have the Premium Wine Card, nominated by many people. A credit-sized plastic card that claims to be able to change the taste of wine, water and other drinks simply by rubbing it against the glass holding the liquid sounds too good to be true. To quote the website, the technology. The Premium Wine Card contains an embedded set of precise frequencies that produces a long-lasting natural resonance. The resonance can be transmitted to the wine through the glass. More so-called explanations and videos can be seen at their website, premiumwinecard.com. It almost seems like a page from the Power Balance book of advertising. It goes without saying that if these claims were true, the inventors would be in line for a Nobel Prize, or even two. But at least there's some good advice mixed in with the New Age double talk. The Premium Wine Card does not affect the alcoholic content of the wine. The resonance from the embedded frequencies will enhance the taste of the wine, but not alter the alcoholic content of the wine in any way. Be aware that 100 millilitres of red wine is equivalent to one standard drink under Australian alcohol guidelines. And finally, we have Dr. Larry Marshall, nominated by Peter Roney. I would like to nominate newly appointed head of the CSIRO, Dr. Larry Marshall, for the Australian Skeptics' prestigious Bent Spoon Award for the perpetrator of the most preposterous piece of paranormal or pseudoscientific piffle. It was recently reported that Dr. Marshall is promoting the, quote, technology, end quote, of divining or dowsing for water as a solution to Australia's drought problems. He claims that he has, quote, seen people do it with close to 80% accuracy, end quote, but has, quote, no idea how they do it, end quote. And that the, quote, CSIRO can push the envelope with such projects and contribute to improving agricultural productivity, end quote. Perhaps Dr. Marshall is unaware of the Australian Skeptics Prize of $100,000 for anyone successfully locating underground water by divining or dowsing with a consistent success rate above that of random chance. With recent funding cuts, the CSIRO could certainly do with the extra money. Well, that's a brief overview of this year's nominees for the Australian Skeptics Bent Spoon Prize, Bent Spoon Award. For more information, visit www.skeptics.com.au or just Google Australian Skeptics Bent Spoon.
Welcome to A Week in Science from RiAus, bringing you the science you need to know. You may have heard about 3D printing, the technology that allows you to make almost anything so long as you can design it on a computer. But get ready, today we're talking about the next big advance, 4D printing. 3D printing is pretty amazing. As we said, you can print out almost any shape you can think of, as long as you can design it on a computer. A printer prints out either metal, plastic, or many other substances into three-dimensional shapes by laying layer upon layer. However, one limitation is that you still need to assemble 3D printed parts into a more complex structure. What if we said the next big development, called 4D printing, was to create shapes that can actually assemble themselves into their final three-dimensional structure? That's what researchers are working on now, to create printable materials and structures which, when activated, fold themselves into a predetermined shape. This activation could be water, electricity, heat, really anything. These structures are made by combining plastic and smart memory material, which can morph into different shapes. One of the most obvious applications of this is to create structures which are flat or small, so they can be shipped easily and then be activated into their functional shape once on location. Could this be the end of trying to assemble fiddly flat-pack furniture? Man, I hope so. Objects could also be made which have a different structure in different conditions, meaning one object could have several different uses. Structures could also react to their surroundings to change shape and optimize their effectiveness. How cool is that? And now, here's 4 fast facts about 4D printing. 4D printing was revealed to the world in a TED Talk by MIT researcher Skylar Tibbetts. We recommend checking it out. The shapes that the structures convert into are determined during the design stage, so every step of the conversion from one shape to the other is controllable. One of the other interesting applications for this technology is in medicine, where molecules can react and transform into functional types when they reach a particular part of the body. And one of the largest self-folding structures we've seen is this 50-foot-long strand. But this technology will be scaled up even further in the future. Want to find out more about 4D printing? Check out our website, www.riaus.org.au, where we have some links. You can also follow us on Twitter @RiAus and like us on Facebook. We'll see you right here next week.
Well, it's about halfway through our meanderings here at Mind Body Wallet Festival. I'm with Eran Segev, Alethea and Jo Alabaster. Friends, what an interesting experience it is. Alethea, I don't think you've been to one like this before.
No, my very first, and a big difference from the Paranormal and Spiritual Expo, which we went to a couple of weeks ago.
A big difference. There's a lot more here, huh?
A lot more, a lot fancier, a lot plusher. So, everything's set up a bit more upscale. And, the range of things is certainly more impressive. Everything from things we were actually getting quite excited about, like the chai teas.
Oh, the teas. Yeah. We all bought some tea. I bought some tea.
We all bought some tea.
Eran, I don't think you've been to one for a little while yourself.
Yeah, well, I haven't been for a little while, but the funny thing was that the first stand that we actually walked into, that's the guy with the that was selling these plastic placemats.
Coasters
that energize water.
Yeah.
This is somebody I remember from one several years ago at Darling Harbour, and the reason I remembered him, it took a while for it to come back to me, but the reason I remembered him was because the excuses he made for why it cannot be tested, and his answers to how this might be tested. For example, he just feels it. That's what brought it back. I then remembered some additional details, but it was interesting to see how his explanation. Alethea actually had a very good summary of his explanation of why it cannot be tested, why double blind is wrong.
He said that double blind testing is a bad idea, didn't he?
It's a bad idea for anything, not just for. Initially we thought he meant only for his stuff, but no, it just. Apparently everybody knows now that double blind testing is the wrong way to test things because it takes away all the emotional stuff.
All the emotional healing that would go along with it.
So it basically removes bias, and we don't want that.
No, we don't want that because then we might not pass the test. So it was very interesting.
Jo, I think this is your first time at one of these too, isn't it?
This is my first time. It's been fantastic, actually. I sincerely recommend it to anybody who's curious about these things.
You look so disingenuous.
Oh, no, I do.
She's saying the words, but she's looking really pained.
Oh, no. I'd be a really, really terrible cold reader. No, I'm actually having a very interesting time. It's a little bit overwhelming, frankly, the scale of this and the number of people with different claims, different things that they want to sell us. Predominantly, be they ideas or actual products, and there are a lot of products for sale here.
There are a lot of products for sale. Isn't it interesting how we've all had a go at asking questions? The greatest question you can ask is how does it work, and take it from there. And it doesn't take long before they don't know what to say anymore.
They have no idea. And one of the things that we've seen them at several stands today were the earphones. They're just basically headphones. Yeah, it's there. It's definitely. I haven't seen this before, but there were at least three stands here that we saw. We saw it. They had basically what it is. They have headphones on, and they somehow scan your body through these headphones.
And on the computer screen up pops a great graphic of your internal organs with little spots on them saying, "Here's what's wrong with you."
Yes. So the question I asked was about. So I understand that how sound can be generated from headphones. That's well-established technology.
Yes.
But I asked something that's a little bit of a trick question. I asked, how do you get the feedback? How do you know what comes back.
How are you capturing
because they
the
say,
data?
how are you capturing that? What are you using? What mechanism are you using to capture the response, the body's response? Now, the reason it's a bit of a trick question is because anybody with half an idea about how this technology works knows that headphones can actually be used as a microphone if connected to the right right input. So, but they have no idea. It's not connected to anything that would be able to detect.
But I think you'd have to agree with me. Those claims that they were making were outrageous.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I think that's kind of an assumption.
Cancer people I've seen today. Those are the only cancer people I've seen today. There was the lady who said that could diagnose.
The acid alkaline guy.
They could detect what was wrong with it. Something was wrong with a region of your body.
We all tasted the water, didn't we?
We all tasted the alkaline water.
And he was very careful, actually. When questioned, he was very careful to say that no, he cannot diagnose cancer, which is probably very wise of him because I'm inclined to agree.
The idea with that was depending on the taste of the alkaline water to the individual, it would indicate that something was wrong with a specific part of your body. I got a chalky taste, which means that something is up with my bowels.
That's right. I was told the same thing.
You forgot about your reproductive organ.
Yes. I also tasted something a bit fishy, which could either be my kidneys or my reproductive organs.
Organ?
And the bitterness.
No, it was very specific.
Oh,
reproductive organ, singular.
And the bitterness was what was my bitterness? No, that was my liver. Something's wrong with my liver.
Now, just before we came to sit down, the three of you had an interesting sort of
Christocentric light. That's the name of the...
So the three of you sitting down and two people to each of you all doing things. What's happening?
I was actually wondering whether they're also touching your... Girls, did they touch your chest? Because they touched mine.
Not my chest, my shoulder only.
Okay.
Yeah, should go
that's something that only men get. Okay. This was supposed to be... We had a choice, actually, between 4 different things. I don't remember all 4 of them, but there was
dream interpretation.
Dream interpretation. There was a paranormal experience.
Yes, supernatural experience.
Supernatural.
Encounter.
A blessing or a healing.
Yeah,
that's awful.
So I suppose we chose... I actually chose both supernatural experience and a dream interpretation. I told them some stories, some dream kind of that I vaguely remember. I told them it happened this morning. They started with some really basic, the kind of stuff that you would in a stream of consciousness. If I told you the story now, you would come up with the same things because there was something with a wallet. So obviously, that means you're worried about money and stuff like that. But I don't know. And then they just prayed for me and told me how I'm spiritual and how Israel has a long history of blessing. And I thought that it's clearly not blessed right now. So,
they came out of left field. Well, I think you'll have to agree with me that coming to these things every now and then is completely worthwhile.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've had a ball.
And you've learnt a lot, huh?
I don't know how much I've learned, how much knowledge I have amassed. I have certainly observed a lot.
That's a nice way to put it. And Jo, I'm glad that you came along.
I'm very glad that I came along. I'd be willing to do this again in a heartbeat. It's actually fascinating, and I've got a lot of literature that I'm taking home and things to chase up, which will be fascinating.
Yeah, we all
there is something I want to just say about my experience here. I think the most profound aspect of this tour being there's a World Vision stand. It's a bit lonely there.
It is.
People don't. What they do is they have bottles that with grimy water, and it says dirty water on them. Obviously, the idea is to attract attention to the fact that there are millions of people, children in particular, around the world who that's the water that they have, that they do not have access to clean water, and they said that I asked them, Jo and I told them that we're not, we are here kind of investigating. We don't really, not really into this stuff. And we asked them how it was going, and they said not very well at all. And the girl there told us a story about somebody who came and said that she asked for they asked for donations, obviously, and she said she can't afford it. And she said she was thinking, of course you can afford it. You have an $80 angel drawing under your arm. If you spend half of that on giving kids clean water, then you would have a huge amount of impact. Yeah. So for some reason I would have expected that people here would be the the sensitive kind who would really care about kids not having access to clean water. But
well, if those kids knew the secret.
Yeah.
Well, they chose the right God to pray to.
What was it you say to him? Yeah, you have to say it.
Hey, African orphans, you should just learn to turn that frown upside down.
Oh, dearie me.
And that's the secret.
I'm glad I know the secret. Well, Alethea, Eran and Jo, thanks for joining me today at the Mind Body Wallet. We've still got a few more things to check out before we leave.
Yeah.
And then we can all go home and melt into a puddle.
Thanks, Richard.
There's just so much coming up for Skeptics in Australia for the rest of this year. Not only do we have James the Amazing Randy touring in early December, and more important news about that on next week's show, we have the Australian Skeptics National Convention from the 28th to the 30th of November. And if you haven't bought your tickets yet, now is the time. Convention.skeptics.com.au. Lots to do, lots to see, lots to learn at the Australian Skeptics National Convention, including the winner of the Bent Spoon. I wonder who that will be. And of course, one of our guests at the Australian Skeptics National Convention is Michael Marshall, co-host of Skeptics with a K and the Be Reasonable podcast, and a member of the Good Thinking Society. Wow, I can't wait to hear what Michael Marshall has to say to us here in Sydney. But for those people living in Brisbane, after the convention, Michael Marshall will be appearing in Brisbane to give another talk, Lifting the Lid, Ongoing Adventures in the World of Pseudoscience. For more information about an evening with Michael Marshall, for those people in Brisbane, visit brisbaneskeptics.org, and at the top of the page, click the link for an evening with Michael Marshall. And that evening is the 1st of December. More information at brisbaneskeptics.org.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Hi everybody, Maynard here. Oh man, we've got some spooky action at a distance for you today. In fact, it will not be at a distance today. It won't even be Einsteinium. No, you'll be nice and close. It'll be very close spooky action.
Yes, Maynard, I wanted to have a chat with you about your recent spooky actions at a distance, because we've been getting feedback from listeners about them.
Oh, look, I imagine people are breaking the door down and saying, just cut this out with all this ghost-busting stuff.
Just the opposite. A lot of people have been writing in saying how interested they are that we're doing this, we're taking this approach. And I just wanted to take a moment to have a chat with you about it. I really enjoy the fact that when you talk to paranormal people, we could call them, that it's sort of... you're very disarming, and they're not arguing with you. They're simply telling you what they think. I think that's a really interesting insight.
Well, I think also I would prefer to use the name anomalists. They've discovered something anomalous, or they think there's something anomalous, and I think they'd refer to themselves as anomalists, which is kind of what I like, because they are creating a paranormal solution, but which may or may not be correct, but it's mainly an anomaly they're looking into. So I prefer that, and I am doing this from a point of curiosity, which is why, what attracted me to the skeptic movement. I like to find out things, and if some people want to find out a paranormal solution that may not be backed up with evidence, I'm certainly interested in finding out at least why they think that.
I think it's invaluable, Maynard. I really do, because I speak to a lot of these people, but when I do, they often know who I am. I'm a prominent skeptic, and so their attitude is quite different. But when you come along just to interview them, suddenly we hear what they really think. And again, I think for our listeners especially, it's a great lesson for them. And today is no exception. You're going to be talking to a ghost hunter, but just the way you get inside his mind, and I don't want to say you give him enough rope, but it's sort of a little bit like that.
Well, I wish to mention, and this could be the interview where we mention it, I wish to wonder why people who look for signs of spirits and that kind of thing don't use the ultraviolet frequency of light the way they like to use the infrared. And I'm just wondering why it's not traditional to use ultraviolet light where it has become traditional for ghost hunters to use infrared.
I've got a pen that shines an ultraviolet light. Maybe I should start looking for one now.
Well, there are a lot of human deposits that can light up in ultraviolet light. That may be why they might not use it, because you just get signs that actual live humans were there. So that might not actually work so well. That could be the reason, but I don't know if that is it. Because cats can see a little bit into the ultraviolet spectrum, I believe.
Oh, well, a lot of animals can see far more than we can.
Well, this is why sometimes cats will be staring at things, apparently. I mean, sometimes it's no doubt because they're just being cats and they want to trick you. But sometimes they might be seeing a little bit of, I don't know, mouse urine or something like that they would use to track their prey, or a moth has banged against the wall and left a bit of an imprint there that you can't see, the cat can. That's what I would suspect.
You might be right. Maybe they're looking at a ghost, Maynard. Who knows? Who are we to say if they are doing that or not? But once again, I'm glad that you can interview these people, and, we have a little peek inside their mind, I think.
Well, look, I suggest, strike up a conversation with... I know a lot of skeptics haven't got a lot of patience for people that seek non-evidence-based solutions to things, and I can certainly understand that after being many years in the organisation and talking to people, you just get sick of hearing the similar thing. But people do have reasons that has steered them down a certain path, and... remember, it's not your job to change them. I think it's the job just to find out why they think what they think. And basically, I'm just a curious bugger, and I like being that.
I think that's absolutely right. So why don't we both sit back, Maynard, and enjoy the next instalment of your interviews from the Australian Paranormal and Spiritual Expo.
Wow, I'm going to go smoke my socks. Oh, look, I've brought myself to... look, we've got the Paranormal Streetwear guys over here, but they're much more than that. Who have we got here?
Hi, I'm Dan. How are you going?
Oh, look, good to meet you, Dan. Now, what are you representing this afternoon?
Well, today we're here as part of Ghost. That's Ghost Hunters of the South Coast and Territories. We're a group of paranormal investigators on the South Coast, in the town of Milton, near Ulladulla there. Oh. And we pretty much investigate private residences, businesses up and down the coast, from Wollongong right down to the border, down near Eden.
Look, I've spoken to people in Newcastle, out west here, Berrima, and what's your favourite place to go to in your area? Everyone's got their own favourite, venue.
In my area?
Yeah, in your area, yeah.
Jeez. Well, we've investigated the Milton Theatre, and that was interesting. But there is a surf shop in the town of Milton which provided some fantastic results.
Now, what's the history with the shop that would make it all that interesting?
Well, funny you ask. The original owner, some cantankerous old bastard who passed away in 2001 at the age of 89, didn't like his family a whole lot, so he ended up selling the building before he died to the council for $1.
What? Yeah, okay, well, there's some emotion there.
That's right. And we have picked up on a certain thing there, a young girl. We didn't know anyone who worked there at that stage. We didn't know any names. And through a pendulum session, where sort of like a Ouija board sort of thing. Okay, right. I don't put too much stock into those, but we've got a member of the crew who loves the old school stuff.
Fair enough.
And we got some incredibly detailed information which was verified by the owner.
Okay.
It was very interesting, and that's probably one of the most...
And Walter.
And Walter at the Milton Theatre, that's right, yeah. Little boy in the Milton Theatre.
You're talking about old school tools that you use here. I'm looking here, and some of these things look like futuristic mines that you might use in Star Wars or something like. You throw one down and put up the aerial and you wait for the Star Troopers to come along. Well, yeah, what have you got here? What would be the most high-tech toy that you use?
Oh, okay. Well, obviously... probably too big to display here at the moment, but obviously we use like a security system where we can have the cameras locked off and set up. We can keep an eye on the screens in 4 different positions and see what's going on in rooms. We've got everything from REM pods here, which if electromagnetic field disturbs them, the lights and the whistles and all the bells go off. So it's a quite interesting piece of equipment.
But just explain to people what a REM pod is again, because I'm looking at it. It looks pretty bloody cool. It does look a bit Tom Baker era Doctor Who as well.
It's very TARDish, yes. Well, what it does, it creates its own little electromagnetic field.
All right, from what sort of range?
Well, this one has multiple ranges on it, so you can do it from 1 inch right through to 5 inches. So if anything passes over, it's going to go off. It also has a temperature sensor on it as well, so if the temperature goes up and down, it's going to go off as well. And it's really good because it's quite loud, so you can hear it no matter where you place it. And, of course, with the lights, if you've got a locked-off camera, you can see the lights going off on camera as well. But probably the most interesting piece of equipment we've got here is the VRM. Now, don't ask me what it stands for because I have no idea. But what this piece of equipment does is it actually listens to EM fields, electromagnetic fields.
Okay, yeah, it looks a lot like an extremely good sniper sight, yes. or a very, very directional microphone.
That's what it's all about. It's quite accurate. So if you're in a place that's got a lot of electricity running from it, you're going to hear a lot of different buzzings and sounds and stuff like that. But if you're in a location that's void of any electricity or has very little electricity running through it, this is a great piece of equipment because if you do hear something that's not in the natural environment, it is quite interesting. And it's also, you've heard of EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, where you listen back to what you've recorded, you can hear voices. This is real-time EVP, so you can actually hear as you're listening. So we'll put the headphones on, do a sweep of the location, and we'll also hook up a little digital recorder too so we can record everything that's going on at the same time.
Okay. Like I've been mentioning to a lot of people here, it's a bit like the ghost hunting industry is at these kind of events.
This is the second Australian Paranormal Expo. I was able to visit last year and then obviously invited to come along and show off what we do, and of course the Ghost Paranormal Streetwear. And it's proving that I suppose the paranormal scene in Australia is quite young. We spoke to a couple of the guys from the States recently. We had a big group at the quarantine station, the Kling brothers, who used to be on Ghost Lab. And they said basically in the States, especially places like Gettysburg, a lot of paranormal teams. Every man and his dog is a paranormal team. But in Australia, it's a very, very young industry, and people are slowly getting into it.
Now, tell me, who would be the rock stars of the ghost hunting industry? Who are the people where everyone go, hey, they're here, look out?
We're talking about Australia? We're talking about Universal?
Well, both. Universal, but right, are there any in Australia yet? Yeah.
Oh, well, there's people we know and we look up to and respect. But I suppose you've got the guys that you see on TV, guys from Ghost Adventures. Zach Baggins is quite a big one because he's a very loud personality. The Kling brothers are quite good because they're very analytical. They use a lot of their technical equipment, which is really good. And, of course, I think everyone remembers Most Haunted, which is probably the first paranormal show on TV, really. And they sort of set the scene.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, they're coming on TV quite often now, everything from The Haunted to Collector to... there's a whole heap of shows. I can't mention offhand.
Of course, the problem is with them, with TV productions, they're trying to push out something on a show that happens every week. And as you know, you go out on an investigation a couple of times a week or once a week, and sometimes nothing actually happens.
Well, to be quite honest, 98% of the time you're not going to get anything happen. It's that 2%, that rare occasion where you get something and go, wow. As you just said on the TV shows, that the production companies want value, they want entertainment, they want to see something. So that's why you get these personalities like Zach Baggins, who's on Ghost Adventures, needs to be larger than life and needs to get the crew watching. But it's one of those things. There are a few groups at the moment who are doing documentaries on YouTube. People like Whisper, West Sydney Paranormal Research. They do a lot of documentaries, and the crew from Validate and Moonlark Media who are making some really fantastic stuff, and even have a paranormal spoof series that have just come out called Spook Troopers, which is available on YouTube at the moment. Very funny.
And now, what's your personal theory on this? Now, we're not going to hold you to this one because, for me, it appears that the theory goes along the lines that people from another dimensional plane can manipulate electromagnetic frequencies that we can detect in a small way.
Yeah, roundabouts. You know, it's one of those things. We always come up with a lot of theories depending on the results and the data that we get on the investigation. Sometimes those theories tend to contradict each other, so it's one of those learning steps. But yeah, I think the big thing that everyone looks back to is the changes in the atmospheric conditions. So electromagnetic fields, temperature drops, which is, I suppose, the most common theory in the ghost hunting world. And then you were talking about, interdimensional beings and all that sort of stuff.
Also transdimensional, and don't forget time slips as well.
Well,
there's time slipping.
Well, there is. We had an incident recently with a team we were working with, which I won't go into it, but it pretty much did our head in, and we started talking about different dimensions. As you said, time rifts, where could this person who's speaking to us now and making these objects move and do whatever now, can they hear our voice? Are they living 80 years ago and actually listening to our voice, and we're the ghosts? You know?
Yes, yeah.
We just don't know, and that's what we're looking for. We're not so much looking to prove if the paranormal and ghosts exist. We're trying to figure out how and why this phenomena occurs.
Okay. Look, thank you for your time today, and have a great time with everyone, because there's quite a good mood here today, isn't
there? There is. Everyone loves it, you know. And as I said, it's a quite a young field in Australia, but people are starting to open their minds up a bit. And I think if you look on the internet, I think you'll probably find that, you know, over 50% of the population of the globe believes in something else.
And where can we find you on the web?
You can find us on Ghost Hunters of South Coast and Territories via Facebook, and same with the Ghost Paranormal Streetwear as well.
Well, it's all over. Eran had to leave early. I think he had enough. And Alethea and Jo and I stayed right to the bitter end. Well, a little while longer at least. We're at the Olympic Park train station to get our trains onto our various places where we live. Alethea, it's all over. But I could see your anger welling up at one particular point, I must say.
Yeah, there was a store handing out books about how the massacre of Nanking never happened. And actually everyone was really happy and smiley when all the Japanese soldiers came. And there were no comfort women, there was no rape or nothing like that. It was all hunky-dory.
Yeah, and you made the point that if those people had been Holocaust-denized, they'd never be allowed in.
No.
Yeah.
No, it would have been unthinkable to allow Holocaust deniers in, and I'm wondering why that was permitted.
Well, now we know we might be able to do something about it, make a fuss. That's why, one of the reasons why I keep coming back year after year after year. Every now and then we discover something that we can actually make a fuss about. And the thing that I know that was outrageous, but the other things that I found outrageous were these diagnostic computers. You put on the headphones and suddenly your organs are on the screen and flashing lights, and they can diagnose you, which is just, as we were mentioning before.
Oh, and apparently hospitals in Russia and Japan have those machines.
But not here because...
We're too far away from Russia to have those machines.
Damn. But luckily there's one here at the Mind Body Wallet.
That you can try for just $95.
What a bargain. How are you, Jo Alabaster?
I'm doing quite well, actually. I've had some Christian healing, which was basically a guided meditation once again, and people putting hands on my shoulders and me sitting still, and I honestly replied to them when they asked. Oh.
Platform number 3 goes to Lidcombe, stopping at Lidcombe.
Replacing the bus announcements.
That's right, we've got a train announcement, not a bus announcement. So, yes.
Yeah, no, it felt quite pleasant, actually.
But it was worth going all over, wasn't it?
It was definitely worth going, yeah, absolutely. There are a couple of pushy people, kind of.
There were.
I had one Chinese massage person who was very insistent that I needed a massage, and I made the excuse to go off to an ATM and then kind of hightailed it out of there, which might not have been the kindest thing to do, but yeah. Other than that, people generally quite nice, not quite...
I thought so,
yeah.
People are generally quite nice, but I tell you what, Jo Alabaster, we did well today. You and I both got... I'll reach into my goodie bag here. Here it is. Oh, man. A packet of coconut cream, coconut hot chocolate. Oh, here comes the train.
Here does come the train.
All right, while the train's pulling in and we're jumping on, this is Richard Saunders, Jo Alabaster and Alethea Dean signing off from Olympic Park.
Bye!
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.